Welcome! Tonight I will tell you a story about a day in the life of a tea master in China. Make yourself comfortable, save this video, and let it guide you gently into a peaceful sleep. Now, let us begin our journey. The morning begins before the sun has fully risen. A faint light brushes the edges of the tiled roofs, and the bamboo groves whisper as the breeze stirs their narrow leaves. The air is cool, carrying the clean scent of dew mixed with the faint sweetness of damp wood. From somewhere down the valley comes the steady murmur of a stream, a sound that has accompanied this village for centuries. The tea master wakes not to an alarm, but to the rhythm of the world itself, the rooster's call, the first rustle of neighbors beginning their day, the cicada's fading song as night surrenders to dawn. His house, built of wood and stone, holds the fragrance of earth and dried leaves. Shelves line the walls, each carefully arranged with clay jars sealed with paper and tied with string. These jars hold the lifeblood of his art, teas of different harvests, each with its own memory of soil, rain, and sun. He steps outside onto the wooden veranda. Mist clings low to the ground, turning the garden into something half-dream, half-waking world. He pauses, hands resting behind his back, and breathes in deeply. For him, the day is not a race to begin, but a path to walk slowly, one deliberate step at a time. Near the house, a stone basin collects water from a bamboo spout. He dips a ladle and lets the liquid flow back, listening to its voice. But this water will not do. For the first tea of the day, he prefers to fetch it himself, walking down the narrow path to the stream. The sound grows louder as he descends, until the water reveals itself in silver threads dancing over rocks. He kneels, fills a clay jar, and seals it with a wooden lid. The water is cold, alive, carrying the taste of stone and mountain air. As he straightens, jaw heavy in his hands, he reflects. Water is never the same twice. Each stream has its own voice, its own memory of rain and stone. To make good tea is not only to pour water over leaves, but to understand what story the water is trying to tell. When he returns, the house is filled with pale light. He opens the shutters, letting the breeze move through the rooms. On the low table in the center of the tea room, he arranges his tools: a small kettle of iron, delicate porcelain cups, a bamboo scoop, and the Yixing teapot that has darkened with age and use. Each object is handled with care, polished not for beauty but for respect. This is not yet ceremony. It is preparation, a quiet alignment of space, mind, and movement. Outside, the village stirs with the sounds of daily life. A child laughing, a cart rolling on uneven stones, the bark of a dog. But here inside, time slows. The day of the tea master begins not with words or haste, but with silence, water, and the promise of leaves yet to open. Inside the tea room, light filters through paper screens, soft and golden, casting patterns across the wooden floor. The master kneels by the brazier, arranging charcoal with patient hands. Each piece is placed with intention, larger blocks below, smaller ones above, like a miniature mountain built to breathe fire. A single spark, coaxed with a slow breath, becomes flame. Soon the charcoal glows with a steady red, and the iron kettle is set carefully on top, its black belly beginning to hum with warmth. Before the water stirs, he turns to the leaves. On the highest shelf, away from sunlight and moisture, rest rows of clay jars sealed with handwritten slips of paper. He chooses one with characters brushed in dark ink, a harvest from the spring hills, gathered when the buds were young and tender. Breaking the seal, he tilts the jar, and the fragrance drifts out, dry at first, then sweet, like grass touched by rain, carrying a memory of the mountain air where the leaves were born. He does not hurry. With a bamboo scoop, he lifts a portion, not too much, not too little, and lets the leaves fall into the waiting teapot of yixing clay. They lie there like a handful of green whispers, curled and resting, waiting for the embrace of water. The kettle begins to murmur. At first, tiny bubbles form along the bottom, releasing a faint hiss. This stage is known as the crab's eye, quiet, subtle, promising. The master leans closer, listening, because the language of water must be respected. Only when the bubbles grow steadier, not yet roaring, does he lift the kettle and pour a gentle stream into the teapot. The leaves tremble, then relax, releasing their fragrance into the rising steam. This first water is not for drinking. He swirls it, warming the clay and waking the leaves, then discards it into a wooden bowl set aside for this purpose. The act is small, but sacred, to honor the leaves, to clear away any dust, to prepare for what is to come. When the second pouring comes, he waits. Steam curls upward, fragrant and light, carrying hints of flowers, earth, and spring breezes. He warms the porcelain cups, rinsing them with hot water and laying them neatly before him. They are no longer cold objects of clay and glaze, but living vessels, ready to hold a piece of the morning itself. The first true infusion flows out, golden and bright, into the tiny cups. One is placed quietly aside, a gesture for the ancestors. The master lifts his own with both hands, cradling it like something fragile. The taste, when it touches his tongue, is layered, soft bitterness fading into sweetness, warmth spreading through the chest, the memory of rain lingering in the throat. As he drinks, he reflects. To begin a day is not to chase it, but to taste it. Tea is not about quenching thirst. It is about listening, to leaves, to water, to silence. Every cup is a mirror. It shows whether the heart is restless or calm. Today the water is clear, the leaves are generous, and the silence is deep. My own heart must try to be the same. The world outside continues, merchants calling in the street, children playing, dogs barking. But in the tea room, time slows until each breath feels like its own ceremony. The tea master drinks again, and the morning opens like a flower. By the time the sun climbs higher, the mist has thinned and the bamboo leaves glitter with beads of dew. The tea master knows there will be visitors. There almost always are. He clears the low table with a damp cloth, the grain of the wood darkening under his hand. Porcelain cups are rinsed and lined in a quiet row. The yixing teapot rests in his palms for a moment, as if he were greeting an old companion. In a slender vase, he sets a single twig of plum blossom, white against the warm wood, a small reminder that seasons move even when the mind wishes to be still. The gate creaks. Two neighbors step onto the stone path, sandals whispering over dust. They bow lightly. One carries a basket of persimmons glowing like small suns. The other offers nothing but a gentle smile and calloused hands. The master accepts both gifts with equal gratitude and gestures toward the tea room. They sit on the tatami. No one speaks at first. Silence has its own ritual here. The brazier murmurs, the kettle breathes. Outside, a cart rattles over uneven stones. Somewhere a dog barks once and is quiet again. The master lifts the lid of a clay jar and the fragrance of spring leaves rises, green, high, the ghost of flowers. The guests close their eyes, letting the scent arrive before the taste. He warms the cups, then empties them into a wooden bowl. The bamboo scoop moves like a stroke of ink, delivering a portion of leaves into the dark teapot. When the water reaches the crab's eye, he pours in a steady thread. The leaves quiver, unfurl, and a pale steam curls toward the ceiling. The first rinse wakes the leaves and is poured away. The second pouring is left to rest. The master places his hand gently on the teapot lid, not pressing, not claiming, simply present. When it is time, he decants the liquor into a fairness pitcher, then into the cups, moving in a small circle so no one drinks more or less than the others. They lift their cups. The tea is light and clear, a gold that almost thinks of green. It carries the freshness of a hillside after rain, the sweetness of grass, a hint of stone. They sip in quiet, the taste lengthens. Persimmons are cut into slender crescents and shared. The neighbor with the basket speaks at last, his voice low. The rice looks strong this year, he says. If the wind is kind, the other neighbor nods. My daughter's wedding is after the harvest, he adds, and then laughs softly, embarrassed by his own happiness. The master listens. Tea is a door, he thinks, and every cup opens it a little farther. He pours the second infusion, deeper now, rounder, and conversation widens. They trade small weather, small troubles. They speak of leaky roofs and stubborn hens and aching knees. Nothing is grand, and therefore nothing is trivial. Between sentences, they let the silence breathe. Silence is not the absence of speech, the master reflects, but a field that allows speech to grow. Without it, words are weeds. With it, words are grain a quiet knock. The apprentice kneels in the doorway, cheeks flushed from carrying bamboo sticks for the brazier. The master beckons him in and, after a cup for greeting, nods toward the teapot. The boy's hands are careful, but the stream of water falls a little fast. The leaves tumble. The liquor emerges slightly cloudy. He winces. The master does not correct him with words. He pours the imperfect infusion into the fairness pitcher and tips it gently into the wooden bowl. The apprentice looks stricken. Try again, the master says, voice even. Listen to the water before you ask anything of the leaves. This time the boy waits until the kettle's murmur softens, until the bubbles speak a smaller language. He pours more slowly. The steam rises clean. The master nods once and the boy's shoulders loosen. The first discipline is restraint, the master thinks. Not every readiness is the right moment. Another knock. A traveler, dust on his sleeves and a small pouch in his hand. He bows and offers dried plums wrapped in paper. A place is made for him without ceremony and with great ceremony, the way space is made at a table for someone expected all along. "What news?" one neighbor asks. The traveler smiles. "In the south they brew with taller cups and sweeter water. In the west they heat their kettles with pine and say the resin makes the steam smell like mountains." He shrugs. "Different hands, same thirst." The master pours again. The third infusion arrives darker, the leaves now fully open, sharing more of themselves. Laughter appears, quiet, sincere, as the traveler tells of a storm that trapped him at a roadside shrine, where an old monk brewed tea so light it tasted like rain and air. Water carries the face of its source, the master thinks as he drinks. A cup is a map. If you learn to read it, you can travel without moving. The kettle fades, charcoal settles. The apprentice adds a new stick to the brazier. The ember accepts it with a sigh. Light shifts against the paper screens. Outside, a child sings a fragment of a folk song. A chicken scolds no one in particular. In the tea room, everything feels held in a single palm. The traveler opens his pouch of plums and places them on the tray. "For your kindness," he says. "For the road," the master replies, pushing half back to him. Tea is a river that passes through us. Plums are a bridge. They both smile at the nonsense and the truth. A final pouring. The fourth infusion is softer, a twilight echo of the earlier cups. They taste not for flavor now, but for the recognition that something has been shared and completed. The master rinses the cups and lays them upside down to dry. The guests bow and gather their sandals. At the threshold, the neighbor with the wedding smiles without embarrassment this time. The traveler ties the plums at his belt. When they have gone, the tea room is bright and quiet. The apprentice remains kneeling, eyes on the teapot as if it might still speak. The master sets a hand briefly on the boy's shoulder. "Every cup is a lesson," he says. "Today's was patience," the boy nods. He will forget and remember this many times. That is how lessons become hands. Tea gathers the village without calling it, the master thinks, tidying the table. "It is not the leaves that bind us, but the way we make room for one another while they steep." The sun has climbed to its highest point, and the cool breath of morning has given way to the firm weight of noon. Light falls straight into the courtyard, erasing shadows and painting the wooden beams with a pale, steady glow. Cicadas drone without pause, their voices swelling and fading like waves against the bamboo grove. The air itself feels thick, as though the day is holding its breath. The tea master walks slowly into the storeroom. Here, the air is cooler, filled with the mingled fragrance of leaves that have been stored for years. Rows of clay jars line the walls, each sealed with paper slips brushed with careful characters. The mountain of origin, the season of harvest, the year of gathering. To anyone else, these marks might be simple notes. To the master, they are like names on a family register. He runs his palm across the lids one by one, as if greeting familiar faces. Some jars he lifts gently, weighing them in his hands, testing their balance. When he breaks a seal, the fragrance rises at once. Sharp greenness of spring buds, the deeper toasted scent of autumn leaves, the faint sweetness of teas kept for decades. He closes his eyes, breathing them in, and for a moment each scent carries him back to a hillside path wet with spring rain, to an autumn morning when smoke curled from chimneys, to a winter evening when he drank alone and listened to snow. On a low wooden table, several baskets of dried leaves wait for sorting. The master sits cross-legged, posture upright but relaxed. He begins slowly, separating the leaves by touch and sight. Whole, unbroken leaves are placed gently in one basket. Smaller fragments fall into another. The sound is delicate, a soft crackle, a faint rustle like distant grass in the wind. He works without hurry, as if time itself has slowed to match the rhythm of his hands. The apprentice enters, bows and kneels beside him. The boy's fingers are quick but uncertain. He picks up a handful of leaves and tries to mimic his teacher, but the stems snap too easily and fragments scatter. He winces, glancing at the master. The master does not scold. Instead, he pauses, lifts a single leaf, and turns it between his fingers slowly, showing how to feel its veins, how to recognize its weight. He sets it down as though laying a bird to rest. The boy tries again, his breath slowed, his motion softened. Hands cannot learn in a single day, the master thinks, watching him. They must touch thousands of leaves again and again until memory passes into the skin itself. Patience is the true teacher. I am only its servant. Outside, life in the village goes on. From the lane beyond the gate comes the creak of a cartwheel and the muffled voices of merchants exchanging greetings. Women return from the well, balancing buckets of water on wooden poles across their shoulders. Their voices rise and fall in rhythm with their steps, weaving into a song without melody. A child shrieks with laughter as he chases a chicken through the dust, while the bird clucks furiously before disappearing under a fence. From far off, the hollow thud of a pestle grinding rice into flour punctuates the air, steady as a heartbeat. But inside the courtyard, all is stillness. The only sound is the gentle rustle of leaves in baskets, the occasional sigh of bamboo as it shifts in the breeze. It is as though the walls themselves hold back the noise of the world, letting the master work in silence. When the baskets are full, he rises and walks toward the hillside garden behind the house. The rows of tea bushes climb the slope in gentle terraces, their leaves glistening under the midday sun. These are not vast plantations stretching beyond sight, but small, intimate patches, tended by his family for generations. He pauses at the edge, looking down at the plants as though they were children lined up for inspection. He bends, brushing his fingertips across the glossy leaves. The sun presses against his back, while the soil beneath his sandals is dark, moist, alive. Cicadas shrill, the sound stretching endlessly across the afternoon. He plucks a single leaf, rolls it between his fingers, studies its veins, its color, its resilience. Too young, and the flavor will be thin. Too old, and the tenderness is gone. He releases it, letting it fall back into place. A leaf is like a day, he reflects. too early and nothing is ready. Too late and the sweetness has faded. To live well is to know when the moment has come and when it has already passed. Returning indoors, he turns to the drying racks where freshly plucked leaves lie spread in thin layers. Their green has begun to darken as moisture escapes. He lifts a bamboo rake and moves the leaves gently, ensuring each breath of air touches them equally. The fragrance fills the room, sharp, grassy, alive like a meadow trembling after rain. A neighbor passes by the gate. Pausing, he closes his eyes and inhales, a smile forming on his face. He does not enter. The fragrance alone is enough. The master inclines his head in greeting and continues, as though he and the neighbor had shared a brief but complete conversation without words. At last, sweat dampens his brow. The master wipes it away with a cloth and sets aside his tools. From a high shelf, he takes a jar of roasted leaves, darker and stronger than those used for morning tea. He heats water and prepares a small pot, pouring out a deep amber liquor into a single cup. This tea is not for ceremony but for sustenance. He drinks slowly, the bitterness cooling his tongue, the warmth spreading through his chest. Afterward, he opens a worn ledger, its pages stained faintly with years of ink. Dipping his brush, he writes with neat precision the state of the leaves, the feel of the soil, the weather of the day, the progress of drying. Each stroke is measured, each word deliberate. These notes are not only for myself, he thinks as the characters take form. They are a bridge for those who will follow. Perhaps one day my apprentice or his apprentice will open this book and hear today in these lines the hum of cicadas, the scent of drying leaves, the quiet weight of noon. In that way, the day will not vanish. It will be steeped again, like old leaves yielding a final sweetness. The afternoon stretches ahead. There are still jars to seal, baskets to check, floors to sweep. Yet the master does not rush. For him, every act, sorting, raking, writing, is part of the same practice. To live as a tea master is to understand that nothing is ordinary. Every motion can be ceremony if it is done with the right breath. By late afternoon, the light softens. The hard edge of noon loosens into a gentler gold, and shadows begin to lengthen across the stone path. The tea master sweeps the courtyard not because it is dirty, but because a clear path is the first welcome a guest receives. He hangs a small lantern by the gate and trims its wick. Even unlit, its promise steadies the dusk. Inside, he wipes the low table, turns the cup's mouth down on a clean cloth so they hold a small darkness, and lays a few sprigs of chrysanthemum in a slender vase. The brazier is stoked to a quiet glow. The kettle waits, lid tilted, breathing the room's air. The first to arrive is the apprentice carrying a bundle of split bamboo for the fire. He bows, cheeks bright from the walk, and stacks the sticks beside the brazier so their ends make a neat comb. He sits on his heels at the threshold just inside the light. The master nods, neither summoning nor dismissing, and returns to arranging the tools. Tea needle and pick, bamboo scoop, the dark yixing pot whose clay has drunk a lifetime of leaves. Soon the gate creaks again. Two elders step onto the stones, one leaning on a cane polished by time, the other with hands that remember rope and field. They bow. The master rises to meet them, returns the bow at the same depth, and guides them inside. A traveling merchant follows, dust on his sleeves and the soft jingle of coins not meant to be seen. He presents a pouch of dried plums wrapped in old paper. The last visitor is a scholar passing through, a scroll tucked under his arm the way a farmer carries a hoe. Each guest leaves the road at the threshold and takes up the quiet of the room like a robe. They settle on the tatami in a loose circle. Silence gathers first, as it should. Outside, the lane offers its small sounds, a cart's distant clatter, the single bark of a dog, a child calling and then forgetting why. Inside, the only conversation is between charcoal and iron, the coal's soft crackle, the kettle's breath deepening from whisper to murmur. The master opens a clay jar. The fragrance rises high and green with a thin thread of flowers like memory. He warms the cups and empties them into the waste bowl. The porcelain releases a small sigh of heat. The bamboo scoop moves like a brushstroke, delivering leaves to the pot. Not generous, not stingy. When the kettle reaches the crab's eye, bubbles forming like small pearls at the bottom, he pours in a clean, thin arc. Leaves shiver, then relax. Steam carries a garden into the room. The rinse is poured away. For the first infusion, his palm rests lightly on the pot's lid. He is not holding it down. He is reading the vessel's breath. When the lid's warmth ripens, he decants into a fairness pitcher, then moves from guest to guest in a small circle so no one is first and no one last. Cups rise in both hands and the room drinks as one. The tea is pale gold, almost thinking of green. Its taste steps forward gently. Spring air, damp stone, a sweetness that arrives after you swallow, like a kindness remembered on the road home. The apprentice blinks at this softness as if tasting a word he has heard but never understood. The elder with the cane closes his eyes and nods once, a private conversation with years. They do not speak at once. When words come, they are small and useful. The elders discuss the terrace walls along the fields and how the rains might shift the earth. The merchant offers a story of a mountain pass closed by fog, and a tea shed where travelers shared a kettle they could not see, passing cups by faith and steam. The scholar listens longer than he talks, then says almost to himself, "When water meets leaf, time becomes visible," and lets the thought sit among them like another guest. Second infusion. The leaves are awake now. The liquor is deeper, rounder, with a low note like the memory of firewood. The apprentice watches the master's hands carefully and still misses the moment when the stream should narrow. His own attempt falls a fraction too fast. The master says nothing. He tilts the fairness pitcher and empties that infusion into the waste bowl, a soft brief rain. The boy flushes. The master meets his eyes and speaks as if naming the weather. Too much eagerness makes cloudy water. Let the bubbles decide. They wait a heartbeat longer before the next pour. This time the apprentice measures by sound rather than sight. The mouth of the kettle singing a smaller language, the leaves answering with a thinner whisper. The steam rises clean. He does not ask if it is right. He listens for the room to release a breath. It does. They share persimmons cut into crescents. The merchant loosens the pouch of plums. The master slides half back toward him, the movement saying, "You travel. You must arrive somewhere with something sweet." They both smile at the exchange, which is both gift and balance. Outside, dusk turns violet. The lantern by the gate is lit at last. Flame gathers around the wick and steadies, its small circle of light anchoring the village to the room and the room to the village. The scholar unties his scroll, but instead of reading, he recites from memory a short poem of 5 lines he learned as a boy. A kettle draws a mountain into a single breath. We drink it and the mountain remembers us. The elders answer with the kind of laughter that does not break anything. The master thinks, not unkindly, poems are cups. Good ones do not leak. Third infusion. Fuller now, the tea carries the leaf center. Voices find a rhythm. The elder with the cane tells of a year when rain came too early and would not leave. Only one hillside gave a harvest, and from that small grief came the best tea of his youth. The room is quiet while he remembers the price of goodness. The apprentice stares at the floor as if to see the past inside the grain of wood. Water keeps the shape of its path, the master reflects silently. Leaves keep the weather that raised them. So do we. He touches the pot and finds it hotter than before, the clay storing the room's kindness. The merchant describes a kiln in the western valleys that fires cups so thin the light shines through them like dawn through eyelids. They break if you boast while holding them, he says, and no one asks whether he learned that from experience. The scholar smiles with his eyes. The apprentice looks at his own thick training cup and seems grateful for its bluntness. Charcoal settles, the kettle's song lowers. The apprentice feeds a thin stick to the fire and listens for the coal's answer. He hears it, a small acceptance, a soft intake, the brazier's throat widening to sip air. He will forget this sound many times. He will find it again. Fourth infusion, the evening's last. Soft, nearly transparent, like a story concluding itself. They lift their cups more slowly now, not for flavor but for completion. The master rinses the cups and lays them upside down to dry, white arches like small bridges. He wipes the tray with a damp cloth and then a dry one, restoring the room to its beginning. Goodbyes are brief and exact. The elders bow, measuring depth with their age. The merchant ties the plums at his belt. The scholar slides his scroll away as gently as if it were a sleeping child. At the threshold they pause to look at the lantern's flame. It is steady. They step out into the lane and the night gathers them. The apprentice remains. The master gestures to the space where the guests sat. "What did you learn?" he asks. The boy considers. He starts to name techniques, the angle of the pour, the count of breaths, but stops. "I learned to wait," he says finally, "and to stop waiting when it is time." The master nods once the way the bamboo nods when wind passes. "Then pour the last water," he says. "For us only." The apprentice does, and 2 cups of almost nothing steam rise in the quiet. They drink what is left of the day. Hospitality is a practice of attention, the master thinks as they finish. To make room for heat, for leaves, for strangers, for silence. Tea is the shape of that room. When the last guest has gone and the sound of sandals fades down the lane, the tea master closes the gate. The lantern at the entrance still trembles with a small flame. He shields it with his palm, breathes once, and the light folds into smoke. Darkness settles across the courtyard except for the moon, which spills a silver path along the stones. Inside, the tea room is hushed but not empty. The fragrance of leaves still lingers in the air, faint as memory. The apprentice gathers the cups, rinses them, and sets them upside down on a cloth. Their porcelain bottoms gleam like pale shells, each one holding a little of the evening inside. The teapot, emptied and rinsed, rests on its tray, breathing in the cool air. The kettle, no longer singing, leans against the brazier's quiet embers. The master takes a pair of tongs, spreads the charcoal thin, and the glowing pieces look like a constellation scattered across black earth. He steps onto the veranda. The night embraces him, cool, damp, filled with the scents of bamboo, earth, and smoke from hearths that are slowly dying in neighboring homes. Above, the stars shine clear, their light older than memory. The moon hangs round and low, softening the ridges of the rooftops. The valley's stream murmurs steadily, as though whispering to itself. On the small wooden bench rests one last cup. Into it, the master pours what remains from the pot, a liquor almost transparent, faintly golden, as though the leaves have given all but a final sigh. He cradles it in both hands. Steam rises like a ghost drifting into the night sky. He drinks. The taste is nearly nothing, gentle, thin, like breath itself, yet it carries everything that came before. The brightness of morning water, the softness of the first infusion, the laughter of neighbors, the careful hesitation of his apprentice. Even when almost empty, a cup still speaks, he thinks. So does a day. Its last moments carry all that has passed, not in strength, but in presence. The faintest taste is often the truest. The apprentice appears quietly at the doorway. His voice is small, uncertain. Master, will tomorrow's tea taste the same as today's? The master sets down the cup. His gaze rests on the boy, then on the moon. No, he says gently. Even the same leaves in the same pot are never the same twice. Water changes, fire changes, hands change, and so do we. Tea never repeats itself. It only continues. The boy bows as if the words were too heavy to hold standing. He slips away to his mat, leaving the master with the night. Soon the boy's breathing will join the hidden chorus of the village at sleep. The master remains on the veranda, eyes lifted to the stars. The bamboo sways in the wind, whispering its long vowels. Crickets sing steadily. A nightbird calls once and falls silent. The sounds do not disturb him. They are woven loosely, like threads in a robe of silence. Silence is not emptiness, he reflects. It is what allows sound to have meaning. Without silence, the stream is only noise. With silence, it is a song. At length he rises. The wooden door slides shut with a sigh, and the house folds into its own stillness. Tatami mats exhale their straw scent. Beams creak softly like an old body settling into rest. He lies down on his mat, pulls a thin blanket across his chest, and places his hands folded gently on his stomach. His breathing slows, steady as a kettle cooling after flame. The village around him also breathes. Dogs curl at doorways. Chickens roost, feathers puffed against the chill. The blacksmith's hammer is long quiet. Only the stream continues, carrying the same song it has carried for generations. The tea master drifts into sleep. His dreams are not of temples or grand visions, but of small, ordinary things. The curl of steam rising from a cup, the fragrance of leaves unfurling, the laughter of neighbors, the apprentice's hesitant hands learning the patience of water. And perhaps that is enough. For in dreams, as in tea, the smallest things are the ones that remain. The moon slides westward. Stars turn. The embers in the brazier fade to ash. The house sleeps, the village sleeps, the mountain sleeps. And within this stillness, the tea master rests, like a leaf sinking slowly to the bottom of a cup. Tomorrow waits already beyond the horizon. New water, new leaves, the same silence, and the same unending rhythm of beginning again. And so the day of the tea master has ended. The house has surrendered to silence, the village breathes in sleep, and the mountains keep their ancient watch. Yet nothing is truly finished. The embers may fade, the kettle may cool, the leaves may be discarded, but the rhythm that joined them continues. Tomorrow will come with the same water, the same bamboo, the same path to the stream, and yet none of it will ever be the same. This is the hidden teaching of tea. Nothing repeats. The same leaves steeped twice are not the same. The same river crossed twice is not the same. Even the same breath taken twice is not the same, for the one who breathes has already changed. To live, then, is not to seek permanence, but to notice the impermanence, to taste the fragrance before it disappears, to feel the warmth before it cools, to listen to the silence before it fills again with sound. The tea master does not chase great truths. His wisdom is in the smallest gestures, the careful turning of a leaf, the placing of a cup, the bow given at a threshold. Each act seems ordinary, but together they form a life as steady as water flowing over stone. In these gestures lies a mirror. Whoever looks into it will see their own heart, hurried or calm, restless or still, clouded or clear. Tea does not lie. It only reflects. If the heart is restless, the water will be harsh. If the heart is calm, the leaves will unfold gently. And so the practice of tea is not about the leaves at all, but about the one who holds the cup. The master teaches without instruction, for instruction is heavy. He teaches through presence, through repetition, through silence. In this way, he reminds us that peace is not found in distant places or future times, but in what is already within reach. A leaf, a sip, a breath, a pause long enough to let the water cool before pouring. Outside, the stars move slowly across the night sky. Their light falls on rooftops, on bamboo leaves, on the flowing stream, and finally on you. In this light, you too are part of the ceremony. Even now, listening, you have been seated at the low table, a guest among neighbors and travelers, holding a cup not of tea but of silence. The warmth you feel in your chest is the same warmth that once rose from the master's kettle. Remember this, every day is a steeping. Some infusions are bright, others are bitter, some nearly tasteless. But each is necessary, and each carries something the others do not. To live is to drink them all, without grasping at what is gone, without hurrying what has yet to come. So let tonight's cup be enough. Tomorrow will arrive and steep again. But for now, the water is still, the leaves are at rest, and the silence is yours to drink.